Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. Typically, this would be a guest week, but unfortunately, coming off of Fantastic Fest and a few other things, we weren't able to bring somebody in. So we're going to do a bonus episode of Uncertified. Uncertified is our 30-minute show where we talk about a new-ish release, and you just get me, Matt Monagle, and you just get my friend Matt Donato, who is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as we record this before a busy day.
I didn't go to bed until 2:30 last night, and you're waking me up at 9 o'clock to record a podcast about Strange Darling. That is the dedication level here.
Somehow you and I are like 5 years, but also 50 years apart in age. I don't quite get how it works.
I don't either, but I had some fun last night, and then I had to do a little bit of work, and then we wake up and we just tackle the day. And I don't drink coffee. That is the maniac inside me. Is I just wake up and go. This is me. This is who I am.
Yeah, Donato just relies on his natural manic nature in order to get him up out of the day. So that's great, and it's why you're so prolific during film festivals, I think.
Anxiety is my coffee.
And speaking of festival movies, we've got a title today that sort of honors the traditions, honors the origins of Certified Forgotten, which is genre festivals. This film, Strange Darling, came particularly out of Fantastic Fest. We talk about a lot of movies from Fantastic Fest, both on this podcast and on the website. But before I read the synopsis, a word of warning. It is very, very difficult to talk about the structure of Strange Darling without basically giving away some of the storytelling elements. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. If it's still in theaters around you, go see it in a big screen theater. Try and see it with as many people as possible. If you're just watching it on home video, invite a bunch of friends over. You want that crowd reaction. You want that group energy. If you've already seen it and you need a refresher, it's a tale as old as time. Boy meets girl. Boy hunts girl through the rural Oregon woods with a large caliber rifle. But don't assume you know what comes next. What follows is a horror-fueled game of cat and mouse, where the film's two main characters, known only as the lady and the demon, compete in a grand battle of life and death. Written and directed by J.T. Molnar, and we should add, shot by actor-turned-cinematographer Giovanni Ribisi, Strange Darling is the kind of high-concept horror that will be self-indulgent to some and wonderful to others. Donato, I want to ask you about your experiences with the director. So J.T. Molnar has one previous feature film, that's Outlaws and Angels. You did not like it. In your review for We Got This Covered, you called it, quote, a deflating balloon. But in his favor, J.T. Molnar is also a second-generation hot owner. His family owns the Freakling Bros horror shows in Las Vegas. So he's got that like horror practical environment kind of shit that you love. So you've got a strike, you've got a ball. Like, what did you think going into this movie?
So I try not to let past experiences color my future experiences with filmmakers, because for as many times as I love a Joseph Kahn movie, I know he'll let me down eventually. And for as many times as a Oz Perkins, let's say, never connected with me, he'll make a long legs. So not liking Outlaws and Angels, that was more of a contemporary Wild West problem, I think I'll say. And that was a running too long kind of problem. And Strange Darling is something completely different. It's a completely different beast. And to your credit, talking about, why we do Certified Forgotten and what happens to films sometimes, like Strange Darling, I've been hearing top-notch things about since last Fantastic Fest. Perry Nemiroff alone was raving about this movie, and it was her favorite of the fest, not this year, last year when it played. So I came into Strange Darling with a suitable amount of expectations, let's say. I came in thinking, all right, this has got all the talk of the town. Like, let's give it its time of day. So I came in, let's say, without any of that negativity. And I never do. Like, that's the thing about being a critic. You can't bring that baggage into a movie, because every movie is different. Like, do filmmakers have a style? Do filmmakers have signatures? Absolutely. Again, Perkins, we have discussed that at length. If you'd like to hear deeper thoughts on that issue.
It's the professional athlete thing, right? Like,
right.
If a director was a loss for you yesterday, you have to go into his next movie today and wipe that clean, forget that the last movie was a 10-0 thrumping of you, and go like, all right, this is a new one. This is one he might win.
Yeah. So again, like, listen to our Long Legs podcast episode if you want a deeper discussion about that. Strange Darling to me is a different beast, and it is a strange goddamn darling. And I could never compare that to Outlaws and Angels. This is something.
It is. So I have a kind of like a house rule that so far has been holding up pretty good. And that is, if your movie is broken into chapters, I'm going to like it at least like 20% more. Just on average, movies that are broken into chapters are functionally 20% better just for the nature of being broken into like these chapter segments. So Strange Darling had me at the beginning. And then I didn't like it for a very, very long time. There is, and this is where we start to unpack what the movie's about. So turn it off here if you don't want to be spoiled. But it is playing with our expectations of final girl and slasher tropes in a way that for a while, I'm not going to lie, I am a discerning moviegoer, and I thought that I knew what this movie was for like the first 25 minutes or so. I thought that this was sort of an unconventional deconstruction of the stalk and kill kind of horror movie. And so for 15 or 20 minutes I had the experience of being like, I get what he's doing, I don't think I'm going to like this, like I'm kind of annoyed, I'm like, I got to like watch an hour and a half of him basically do this final girl thing. It felt like he was taking the last 10 minutes of a final girl movie and turning that into like the entirety of his movie, and then it isn't, right? And then he, by playing with the chapter structure, he's able to move forward and backwards in time and allow you to sort of see who these characters really are, who they really are in relationship to each other, who's the victim and who's not the victim. And I ended up loving it because of that. Like I really warmed to, as much as like nonlinear storytelling can be very much a cliche or sort of like, a college student conceit. Like it really works for this because the whole movie is just like big conceptual swings.
Yeah, so if we're gonna get into that part of it already, I the structure itself is very smart because it does the expectation thing. I already got a little when I watched it. Let's say I don't think I knew where it was going because the minute they started throwing different chapters at me instead of going in chronological order, I knew there was some trickery afoot. I knew they were going to try to use that to their will. And when I got to I forget the order that it goes in. Obviously, I don't. I'm gonna mix that up. But the way that it doesn't go chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I love how we get a familiar story. Let's say I do want to say like to me the idea of a killer chasing someone through the woods is exactly what we expect from horror. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
horror 101, and JT knows that. Like that's what this movie I think is very good at. It knows the tropes. It knows what horror fans expect, and it gives you that out of order, jumpy timeline, but it doesn't do it in a negative way. I've had the jumpy timeline be such a problem in some movies because film directors try to get cute. They
Yeah.
try to get, a little funky with their editing and go like, yeah, we're going to give you an out of order story and it's all going to make sense at the end. And
Mm-hmm.
half the time it does not. Let me be very clear. It does not, and it sinks the movie. Strange Darling uses its timeline against the audience in such a smart way because while I didn't think I knew what was going on, I still towards the pivot point, it just works so well when that pivot happens and the way it uses the main character's desires and wants in the bedroom and what she allows and what we perceive, like so much of that stuff is used against us and our expectations. It's so very smart the way it uses her sexual like tendencies and the way that she wants to be dominated in the bedroom and how that paints Kyle Gallner's character. God, it works so well.
Yeah, it made me, I think I posted this on Blue Sky. It made me think of all things, a review by Roger Ebert of 7 Pounds. So 7 Pounds is that Will Smith movie that like the whole movie is about him reaching out to people. And then you learn in the end that it's sort of like an atonement type thing. I guess spoiler alert for 7 Pounds, but it's an atonement thing that he's doing for all of these people who he accidentally, through negligence, brought violence into their lives. It's a drama. But he wrote his final sentences of the review of 7 Pounds, which I think he gave a 3 out of 5, were some people will find it emotionally manipulative. Some people like to be emotionally manipulated. I do when it's done well. And that has, of all the reviews of Roger Ebert, it's still the goat that I have read. For some reason, that is one of the lines that keeps coming back to me again and again. Is you know we don't need to get into the discussion about contemporary audiences treating movies as things to like intellectually better. we've had that conversation before. There are a lot of people have written about it. Like, I think folks get that. But I think what it speaks to, what I like about that Ebert quote, is it kind of tells you it's okay to like be along for the ride. It's okay to kind of give yourself up to the experience of a movie like Strange Darling, right? Like of a movie like Memento. Would you enjoy Memento or Strange Darling as much if they were played out linearly? No, no, but like fuck that. That's not really the point. The point is that you're giving yourself over to the unconventional nature. You're on this roller coaster ride of the story being sort of unfolded the way that the filmmaker wants to do. And it doesn't matter if you can see it coming or if you can, if you think that it wouldn't hold up if they played it straight, as if that's something that a movie needs to aspire to. It works. It's manipulative. It's intentionally manipulative, but it's done well. And I like being emotionally manipulated when a movie does it well.
And let me be honest, like Strange Darling, if you watch the events play out in the order that they actually do, is a worse movie. The timeline cutting here is what makes Strange Darling one of
Yep.
those unique watches. Because again, it goes right back to me saying it uses its information against you. It uses everything we know about movies and the genre and how they unfold usually against us as the audience. That is why it is so goddamn smart. Like it's such a smart delivery of the concept. And to your point, talking about being stuck in movies and letting them unfold, the anti example, or no, actually, sorry, the perfect example and the anti Strange Darling I watched this week, and it was Caddo Lake. And I did not like Caddo Lake and where it goes. I'm not allowed to talk about it because there is a spoiler list that is basically the entire movie sent by
Yeah.
PR, and it's just the dumbest shit ever. But
I read
anyway,
the deadline review was basically all about how they couldn't write a review of Gotta
yeah,
Lake. Yeah, William Bibiani wrote that. I thought that was very funny.
yeah, so that is part of my Collider review. I'm literally like, hey, I'm going to review Caddo Lake as much as I can, but apparently I can't review it for you. Anyway, did not work for me. And it is one of those movies where you are stuck in a moment and you have to just watch things play out. And the movie doesn't care about what's happening outside this moment. It is a memento. It is a Strange Darling. It is a just, you are along for this ride and you have to hold on. And Caddo Lake loses me because there's nothing to hold on to halfway through. And the movie just starts falling apart because it does not establish the moment. It does bad at keeping you in the universe it is built without building a universe. Where Strange Darling is like, cool, we're dropping you right in. You got to grab on and hold
Yeah.
on. And I am engrossed from the starting point, and it kept me through the whole time. So like that is done by that non-linear jumpiness, and that is said with love in this indication, because I have used jumpy as a derogatory many times
Sure.
as well.
And part of what makes it work so well from a nonlinear standpoint is that I don't know Willa Fitzgerald. Like I never watched the Scream TV show. I'm sure that you did, and probably have some opinions on her based on that. But I don't really know her as an actress. I haven't seen a ton of stuff that she's in. And what she does here is sort of like this is a masterclass performance because she is basically going over the course of the movie from the final girl to the killer, right? Like that is the progress that her character, the arc that she needs to do, and she needs to do it in such a way so that it doesn't feel retroactively, you know, that it's unfair or unearned. And she does that as we start to like poke apart at who this character is, at who the lady is, and what why she is the way that she is, and what her relationship is to the demon, both before and after they're racing down a country road shooting at each other. Like it's such a good performance, and it ends. I thought of our podcast actually at the end because this is like the second movie of the year that I've loved that ends with like an extended driving down a highway sequence, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like this is she's doing an incredible job, and it's funny that you mentioned in your review of Outlaws and Angels, one of the things that you talked about the Molnar did that you didn't like is that he lingers on moments too long. 2-hour Western. He spends so much time on a specific shot, on a specific scene, things like that. There is that in here too, in Strange Darling, but so much of it is basically just sitting with Willa Fitzgerald, and she has so much going on as a performer that I was never bored. I never felt like any of those shots ran on too long. I could have sat and stared at her face as she was like thinking her way out of cages that she built for herself, or like struggling with her metaphorical or literal demons. It's such a dynamic performance.
And the predatory aspects that come up, and I keep saying expectations, so I'll try not to use that word again this
Yeah.
podcast. But in the dynamic that is established between the again, it is the lady and the demon. Willa Fitzgerald playing the lady and Kyle Gallner playing the demon, and the way that she incorporates what we presume. I mean, the name of the characters obviously are trying to tell us something,
Hmm.
and once again, they are telling us something that is untrue. They
And
are
they put
telling
it on the screen, right? Like
right,
the beginning of the movie puts Willa Fitzgerald as the lady, Kyle Gallner as the demon. So like they're working to misdirect you from the jump.
and the first thing we see is her running away from Kyle Gallner. And once again, the chronology, so smart to show us that, so smart to do everything because we have no hesitation believing he is the killer. That is just that is history of horror 101. Man chases woman. Like
Yeah.
that is literally 90% of horror movies. And then bringing once again the sexual dominance into it, and her, what we see first. What we see is a man abusing a woman in the bedroom, and that just seals it. Yeah, of course, this dude is the psycho killer who straps and binds someone to the bed, now can have his way. And like, it is just everything we know. And then it cuts away to these little mountain people who are just so adorable and things like
Hmm.
that, and she is the victim, and it just sustains that for so long, and then it hits you with the twist, quote unquote, because it's kind of early in. It's like, do you even
Yeah.
call it a twist? It's just the movie. It's the narrative choice, and it just laughs in our face. I think for everything we believe to that point and just accepted, and like, not in a bad way. This is not a don't believe women way. Don't like take those words in any different way, but in the context of the film and the way it laughs at how we just so quickly make expectations and go with them as the audience. I think it's really special. I think it's really special the way that JT just flips it on us and goes, "Oh yeah, all those things that are so obviously true, they're fucking not. They're not at all. This woman's a mastermind. She's been killing people up and down the entire coast of Oregon, maybe whatever you want to say, like the mountains and stuff. And yeah, no, she's bad." I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I think that was served because she shows up in my feed sometimes. Ed Begley's daughter is, has a TikTok account, and she posts about things like Ed Begley, taking public transportation to the Oscars, right, and things like that. But she posted a few weeks ago, I think, that like Begley had like seen this movie like 5 times. Like he went and saw it like 3 times over the course of a weekend in theaters, and then got invited to a publicity screening on like the studio lot, and like went and saw it again. So like huge fan of this particular movie, which makes me like Ed Begley Jr. even more. But I think part of what I love about the way that this movie kind of comes together, I think it hinges a lot on what is the reason for the killings with Willa Fitzgerald, right? Like, because eventually you're going to get to a place where, you can enjoy the execution of all of this. There can be these great scenes where, like, she's killed someone and then turned to somebody else and been like, I know you're not going to believe me, but I don't want to hurt you, which is a great, like, they do it twice and it's a perfect line delivery every time by Fitzgerald. But if you try and spend too much time, how you explain the rationale behind that is a bit of a make or break thing for a movie like this. If you try and be like, I'm traumatized, it's grief, whatever, you can lose an audience, you could lose me in a hurry. And the biggest surprise of this movie, for all the linear storytelling, nonlinear storytelling, chronology playing that it does, is that it actually has one foot deeply in Bill Paxton's Frailty. Right? Like, of all the movies that I could think of when I was watching this, I was like, oh shit, they're doing a Frailty, which is this notion of this person sees something, it inspires them to kill the people that are the things that she sees. Does she really see that, or is it mental illness? That's not really the point. That's not what this movie's about, thankfully. But I like the, for a movie that is taking this many big swings, it couldn't be a, I had a bad experience, I was abused, I'm taking it out on people, right? That would undercut and would run in conflict with sort of the grandiose storytelling. It has to be something big and ambitious and weird and a little unhinged. And so the nature that the lady sees demons is the only way, for my money, the only way that you could resolve this and make the audience basically be like, great, I buy that, and also it doesn't fucking matter.
I heard this movie described as the anti-promising young woman, and I feel like that is such a
Hmm.
I see. I think it's a disservice to both films. I do not think equating the lady's journey to Promising Young Woman does what a movie I love. I know Promising Young Woman is a very divisive film where it is loved and hated by many people. I am actually on the love side. I think it does a good job executing the entire story that it wants to tell.
Yep.
And I don't think having what you just explained, having that be the impetus behind the lady's killings, should be anywhere near Promising Young Woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it was a very odd choice for me. So like going in, I had that in my mind. That was a weird expectation I had going in, and I like your comparison more to Frailty. Like that is way
Yeah.
more in line with what we're watching here. But talking about what works about this film, and we've already been talking for 22 minutes about it, but being really honest, I mean, it's the technique of it all. It's the
Yes.
performances. It is the intensity of Kyle Gallner, and once again, the believability that he is the villain. Because when he goes into, he's got his hand around her throat, and he's again consensually doing asked.
Right.
We don't know it at this point. It is consensual, but like the way that he goes into character,
Yeah,
and
there is a line in the movie where she says, "I could not imagine consent being more explicit." Right,
yeah,
like there is no sexual violence in this movie that is
and
not consensual.
his line that once again we get their conversation about their agreement in bed after it happens. Once again, context is everything. It is just the order of information we received. And I love his line where he's like, yeah, I did a little acting here and there, and like he's kind of saying like I can do a little improv in the bedroom. And that being his improv, being the most sick, sadistic, fucking evil killer kind of shit possible, I was like it's so perfect what he brings to this role. And again, also Willa Fitzgerald, she is the perfect doe-eyed. Oh, I'm innocent. I'm that
Mhm.
kind of I'm the strange darling who just has these weird bedroom tendencies. Again, weird, quote unquote, going by the movie. But at the other time, she's then murdering Ed Begley Jr. with a telephone. And the line, what you said before about like, I know you're not going to believe me, but I don't want to kill you. Like that delivery alone, Willa is absolutely nailing. Barbara Hershey, Ed Begley Jr., like everyone in
Yeah.
this film is playing their parts to a key and keeping you involved. And then there's the Giovanni Ribisi of it all, because holy shit, this dude should just be a cinematographer at this point. That is
Yeah.
not a knock on his acting. I like Giovanni Ribisi,
Yeah. Everybody
but
does.
this movie is beautiful. Like the first thing I noticed about Strange Darling was the cinematography, and that does not stop. I'm completely in awe of the way he captures the forest, the way he brings colored lighting in, colored filters, the
Hmm.
way that he is able to accentuate the vibrancy of colors just in shots, but also get that darkness in there and like frame it so intimately. I think this dude is such a good cinematographer, and I never thought I'd say Giovanni Ribisi, hang up the acting and just stay behind the camera.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be one of those movies where when the even before the credits roll, when the words "shot entirely on 35 millimeter" pop up on the screen, a lot of people that are watching the movie are going to start hardening their hearts or making some assumptions about the level of pretentiousness in the movie. And it's not going to beat the allegations. If you're going into this movie thinking, "Oh, this is going to be pretentious horror," it kind of is. It kind of is, and that's totally fine. But I want to shout out Kyle Gallner too, because you mentioned him. Like I had just rewatched Barbarian this past week, and I was really struck by the fact that Skarsgård and Gallner are like two sides of the same coin in their two movies. They are people that are conventionally attractive and physically imposing and scary at the same time, and can like flip that switch in the middle of a scene, in the middle of a performance, and be somebody they're like, I trust you. I really don't fucking trust you. He's other people have said, I think it was BJ Colangelo that wrote for Slash Film that he's our Scream King right now. And absolutely, I'm so excited to see him continue to do good stuff. But I also love the way that violence happens in this movie. There is a kind of a shorthand in my household talking about problematic faves. I'm a big fan of Wind River, the Taylor Sheridan Western with Jeremy Renner. And, I know that Taylor Sheridan is not the best filmmaker. His politics can be a little gross. I get that. But Wind River to me is the platonic ideal. I always talk about I love horror that is like 90 minutes of waiting for the bad thing to happen and then like a minute of the bad thing. Wind River is that. Wind River is like there is very little violence until there is a gunfight that is over in 10 seconds. And the aftermath of that gunfight lingers on for like a good 20 minutes on screen. I love short, frenetic, giant bursts of violence. And I think Strange Darling does a wonderful job of letting you live in the uncertainty of what's going to happen. But when violence happens in this movie, it's fast and it's over quickly. It's a gunshot in the bed. It's a quick cut to a stab. It is the haunting line, "She's killed us," followed by somebody else being killed as well. Like, the violence in this movie is not, and I just watched stop motion too, so I've got all these things bouncing around in my head. It's not sitting there languishing in cruelty. It is sudden burst of violence and done, sudden burst of violence and done. And I respond to that so much more as a moviegoer.
Yeah, Kyle Gallner is that hot, dangerous.
He's a
like,
bad boy.
like that's the thing. He's hot, dangerous, dangerous, hot. However you want to put that together. And the Skarsgård of it all, like that's a great comparison. Like you are 100% correct. Like Barbarian, I love the way Skarsgård kind of eases you into the uncertainty of it all. And Strange Darling, that is exactly what Gallner is doing. And he doesn't ease you in; he throws you in the deep end of uncertainty in Strange Darling. But it's everything you just said there too. Like this is one of those movies that the violence is loud. The way that I want to describe it is like it's loud and in your face, and it's doing exactly what you're saying. It is short bursts. It is a shotgun blast, but that shotgun blast, it is so like the sound design. It's meant to be jarring and very quick because that's what sets you off and that's what triggers you. Pun unintended, because there are many gunshots in this movie. And again, that's just an effective way of doing things. Like when you drag a moment out, going back to why I did not like Outlaws and Angels, JT's last movie, I lose the potency of what's happening. And in Strange Darling, that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking myself into liking this more. I talked about on the live stream with Perry last night that I do. Every week I'd live stream with Perry, and we talked about Strange Darling. This is one of her favorite movies of the year, and I think I came in at like a 3.5. But talking about it now this morning and like solidifying some thoughts, I do think it is so well executed on so many levels. I can't help but build this up to like a 4 out of 5 movie. This belongs in my maybe top 15 horror, if not it edging into the top 10. Yeah, I really like this movie, and it's just
me too.
It's a good movie. Like I don't like just getting down to the nitty gritty. It's good.
And I don't know what it is about 2024. I don't talk horror all the time the way that you do. I don't probably talk to as many other horror film critics. I have the sense that people think that this is sort of a not as good year for horror films compared to like the last couple. That's kind of a vague impression.
That's so funny because someone I know tweeted out last night that this is a banner year for horror.
That's because that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, like if I think about the movies that I'm not just liking but loving this year, like I loved In a Violent Nature, I loved this one, I loved Eczema, like I loved Longlegs. There are all these movies that are so different from each other. I loved Oddity, right? Like these are all like normally I'm happy if I walk away with 1 or 2 4 out of 5 horror movies in a year. And I'm genuinely drawn to a good half dozen off the top of my head that are so wildly different from each other. And I think that that's what I like, is that this feels like a year where there isn't necessarily a few central themes. It's not like everybody's working in post-COVID space or political space or Me Too space. Not that there's anything wrong with, movies kind of aligning around a trending social topic. I just like that there's so much stuff that's so fucking different from each other. We're getting like swings from all kinds of genres and subgenres, and it makes me really, really happy. So this has been my favorite year for horror, probably out of the last 5, I would say.
Yeah, and you just mentioned stop motion, and that belongs on my top 10 list too. Like I loved stop motion. Well, maybe we'll talk about that on a different podcast, but I agree with you because you just listed a bunch of my movies, and I'm updating for a website my top 10 horror this year.
Nice.
And I can tell you it goes right down: The Substance, Eczema, Infested, stop motion, It's What's Inside, and those 5 movies alone. How are they connected at all? There's no similarity between them, and it's exactly what you just said. There's so many swings happening, and I gotta say, like, it's a damn good year for Shudder too. That's 3 Shudder movies, and honestly, a Netflix movie, which I did not expect to have in my top 5. But hey, Netflix puts out some good movies, even though they never market them.
Yeah, broken clock is right twice a day, as the saying goes. Well, Donato, that is our conversation on Strange Darling. If people want to follow you on social media so they can see when you tweet out that updated list about your favorite horror films of the year, what are the best places to connect with you online?
You can connect with me, Matt Donato, at Donatobomb, DonatoBomb, on Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram, and Blue Sky most. You can also follow me on TikTok. I will start ramping that up in small doses. It's time. I'm going to start using that to my advantage. And yeah, also just follow our little podcast. I know Mono's going to give the spiel, but I never do it too. And I feel like I should give it
Please,
my second
please.
vote of confidence because I really like what we do. Ratings do go a long way, as dumb as it is. And we are just an organic little show here, and we're trying to do things our own way. And we hope that you like it. And the only way to get more viewers is for you to say that you like it out loud. It just helps us, and also helps it. It helps our egos, and it helps us grow. So that's two things you can help.
Yeah, we're just a couple of sad writer boys, and we need the validation. You can follow me just on Blue Sky. That's monogle.bsky.social. Follow Certified Forgotten on your podcasting platforms of choice. Visit www.certifiedforgotten.com. We're going to be migrating to our new platform. You're going to see some big changes coming up over the next month or so. We should mention that we're going to be in Brooklyn a week from today, talking about another really good, probably Shutter horror release. We'll talk about that a little bit this week. But yeah, if you like what you see, follow us on social media. We're everything is sort of dying in the social sphere, so pick the one platform you like. We promise we'll be active on there, and you'll be able to connect with us and our writers. But until then, see you next time, friends.